tell us from your perspective as a male, what is it like to be experiencing a time like this?
Well, for me, one of the most important things, especially now, is to really have an attitude of gratitude. It's something that I try to practice daily, because if you tend to focus too much on the negative, it could really send you down a rabbit hole. It could really get you frustrated. Just hold 1 second. I get a delay. So. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm hearing you.
Okay, good. I had to take off the Bluetooth because I was getting an echo, right? Yeah. So for me, one of the most important things this time around is really having an attitude of gratitude. Really trying to find the positives in everything that's happening. Because the last 2 years have been very, very tough. I mean, especially for the industry that I'm involved in, one of the primary industry, which is the entertainment industry. As an event producer and a practitioner in the entertainment industry, is one of the hardest hit industries. And half of the plans that I would have had for 2021 and 2022, is basically, you had all these grand plans and nothing came to fruition. So it was very difficult. And at times, I think my sanity was, I had to question my sanity, because the frustration of not being able to do the thing that you really enjoy, which is really being a creative, really bringing these ideas to life and seeing people, happy and people enjoying what it is you're bringing forward, not being able to do that was very frustrating. And then the circle of friends that I have as well too, hearing some of the stories that they were faced with was very, very frustrating. So the first 2 years of this pandemic, it really tested my mental and my psychological being. I was at a place, I was in a dark place. I have to admit that I was in a very, very dark place, and it took a while to come out of that. But what I realized going through that, what it did, it really allowed me to start looking and examining new strategies to come out of that. Because it's easy for you to focus on the negative. It's easy to focus on you're not making money, you can't provide, the bills coming in, you're not able to produce what it is you want to produce. It's very easy, and those things need to be acknowledged. You have to acknowledge those things, and it's fine to go through, but you have to find yourself at a point where you have to overcome those things. And for me, one of the ways of doing that was really having conversations with people in my network. So when I hear people talk, I would hear two sides. I would hear the side of people saying, listen, this pandemic, I was able to do and to be so successful during this pandemic. And then you hear the other person saying it was the worst experience that they ever had. It was so challenging, But when I hear people talk about the positive, it really made me feel as if I was very happy to hear people who were able to really acquire some things that they were working on, or to start new businesses or new initiatives. Those things for me, every time I heard those stories, it would trigger a thought in my head. Gleason, what you need to do is acknowledge what it is you're experiencing, but try and find a way to find it positive. Yes, you don't have no money. Yes, the business has been affected. You're looking around, you can't travel, because I do business on the islands, on the Caribbean islands, and that was greatly affected. And I'm talking about, I already spent money in 2019, 2020, and made down payments, and all of this is in US. You're talking about thousands of US, and the frustration had set in. But hearing my friends, the ones who were able to generate some level of success during that 2020-21 period, what it did for me was really, it really triggered a thought. What triggered for me was, Gleason, stop. Just take a breather. Acknowledge what it is you're experiencing, and start looking at focusing on focus on the one thing that you enjoy. Yes, you might not be able to do it. So I enjoy traveling, I enjoy being a creative, but I couldn't do any of those things. So I said, you know what, I have an automotive business, and this is an opportunity. Maybe for me, the negative could turn into a positive. So let's say, for example, one part of my automotive business is rentals. Right? So I do car rental and leasing. Because the country had slowed down, all the rentals were packed up. People were not renting vehicles to go anywhere, right? And then I also know a lot of people who were not working. So one of the things that a business partner and I, what we did was we converted the rentals into taxis. And we looked for drivers, people who were looking to be drivers, and to people who were looking to own vehicles. We converted our rentals into taxis, and we gave them the opportunity to lease to own. Right, so hearing drivers, when we put that up, men were calling. Most of the drivers or most of the persons that were calling were men, but they were calling saying, "Listen, I saw you all posted that you are looking for drivers. 1 and 2, you're looking for there's an opportunity for me to own this vehicle. I'm not working where I was working before. I lost my job. I can't provide for my family, but I really want this opportunity to work a taxi and have 3 or 4 years that I can own it." And for me, that was such a joy for me. You know, being able to know that I could assist somebody else. You know, now again, this was all born in COVID, and it came in the later half of COVID. You know, but being able to help somebody else during this time was such a, and of course, as I said, it was so organic. Meaning, I had the vehicles there, but the purpose of the vehicles was for rentals. And here I am now having hundreds of thousands of dollars in vehicles just sitting down there, converting them into taxis, and now being able to feed or to help somebody feed their family and to generate or to bring in income. That was a real big thing for me, you know. So for me, I think when I saw that happening, you know, I said, you know what, Gleason, you have to find some way in which you could. So that was the catalyst. You know, being able to bring people on board, because for me, I didn't set out to have my vehicles as taxis. I didn't set out to be a taxi owner, to have all these vehicles on the road. That wasn't my plan, you know. But you know, in the midst of pressure, sometimes that's when the diamonds are formed, right? So seeing persons, you know, being able to provide for their family, and then it converted my business from a rental business into a lease to own business. You know, it all happened, and that happened because I took an opportunity to step away. I had to step away. I had to take a breather, and one of the things was that assisted in that was counseling. Right? You know what? I know, you see, Trinidadians, we do not believe in professional counseling. We don't believe in therapy. We don't believe in sitting down and talking to a therapist. We don't. And I'm here to tell you that it works. You know what I'm telling you? It works.
I know.
So I highly recommend persons, you know, pursuing therapy, talking to a therapist, doing sessions, because you might think, you know, talking to a friend or talking to a cousin or family member might be the best. And maybe depending on the situation, it might work, but we have to also admit that sometimes we need professional help. We cannot deny that we need professional help. So therapy definitely assisted me in really kind of channeling my focus, you know. And those sessions, having those conversations with the therapist, really kind of aligned what it is I was going through, and really kind of reshifted my focus, and I really took an opportunity to reset. And with that reset, what it did was, the mind is a very powerful thing. And I think we underestimate the power of the mind, the will to want to accomplish things, the will to, you find yourself in a hole and you're wondering, how am I going to get out of that hole? It all starts here. It starts in the mind. Now, and again, it might be cliche sayings, but it's truth, you know. So for me, that those sessions really opened my mind to seeing things differently. Like, listen, nobody is going to come to help you. Nobody, even if somebody comes, if the will is not there to accept the help, then it makes no sense, right? But the will was there to want to change. The will was there to want to take myself out of this rabbit hole that I was in. And I was able to climb out. Now, I'm not fully out of the hole, eh? Hey, man. I am not fully out of the hole, but I'm in a better place, you know. And again, my colleagues, very close friends, my business associates, Joel Bailey, the whole team, Josie, my house associated family, you know, having conversations with them even though they themselves are small business owners and entrepreneurs, they themselves were also faced with challenge, but we had conversations and we all assisted each other in finding a way to get out of the frustration that we were feeling, you know?
Yeah, I know that some of your business before was more recreational, you know, and that would have had a big impact on your finances and things like that. So with the COVID and the shutdown and the lockdown, as you mentioned, that would have really taken a toll on everything. It would have set you back a lot. But
Yes.
one of the things that I want to commend you on is the way in which you made negative into something positive. I think it was really strong of you. And something just stood out what you said, that you had nobody to help you in that sense, right? And I think that is something that most men are faced with. The fact that they are men, they are expected to be the head of the home, they are expected to be providers. And in a time like this, construction has closed. A lot of different avenues for self-enhancement has been put on pause because of the pandemic and the risk involved with COVID and all of this. So, you know, some men may not be as strong as others, and some may not see like avenues to explore, because I know you had your cars there, you already had that baseline of assets. Yeah, you could have moved with that. You know, but what would you say to the younger generation or the ones that are less developed, you know, that wouldn't have something to fall back on at this time? Because
well, what I would say is
different things happen.
what I would say is that you have to challenge yourself. And when I say challenge yourself, again, you have I know you have the cliche sayings, which half of the cliche sayings are truth, right? You have the will to want to do something different should be there. You have to challenge yourself. And when I say challenge yourself, you remember you're comfortable in your zone, meaning you get up every morning, you do the same thing. You know, you have a shower, you eat breakfast, you do what it is you're supposed to do, and you're comfortable. There's no way that anything new could happen in your life if you operate in a parameter of comfort. If you want to grow, you have to do something that makes you uncomfortable. So that means if you have been walking one particular road and you're looking for something in particular, you have to find new ways, which is what I did, which is the people around me that I know. And I could talk about a good friend of mine who he would have, his profession, he was into weddings, right? So he started off as a teacher, and then he wanted to branch off into wedding coordination. And what he's doing now is totally different from what it is he has set out to do. So one of the things that he's doing now, he is broadcasting and streaming funerals. He then said, no, listen. No,
it makes sense. It makes so much sense.
But if you ask him, this is not something that he had set out to do. You know,
yeah.
It is right now what he started off doing. But at the end of the day, when the bills coming in, when you have kids to feed, when you look left, you look right, and nothing coming in, and an opportunity organically presents itself, you have to capitalize on it, right?
Yes,
so some of us who we don't want to do the unorthodox thing. We don't want to go on, if it's construction, you don't want to work taxi, you don't want to be a cashier. And as far as I'm concerned, as a man, there should be no shame. You should have no shame in what it is you do, as you know, especially in regards of to feed your family, you know. And there are many other stories of men that I know who would have started off one way, who have their masters, who well educated, but unfortunately COVID happened, life happened, and they had to switch, you know. But the will to want to succeed and the will to want to survive should be there. You know, if you don't have the will, if you're not feeling, if you're just being lazy and you're just being negative, nothing is going to happen. You have to want to challenge yourself, you know. And that's one thing I can say about the people around me, is that especially the men around me, when we were having conversations, when we were having negative conversations, it was us sharing stories. It was us talking about the negative that was happening. But interestingly enough, out of those negative conversations came positive conversations. You know, hey, why we don't try this? You know, why not start this business? Because that's one thing about your support system, and your network is very important as a man. Because you can't be talking about being a fisherman when all you're doing is you know, you're doing something that is totally different from becoming a fisherman. You have to find yourself in a space where you have other like-minded persons. So whether it be if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to start having conversations with entrepreneurs. You know, you have to be around persons who have either walked the journey that you're looking to walk, or they are presently in that journey, right? But they can definitely learn some experience. So for me, some of the persons, I would have been inspired by the Michael Seelys, the Selwyn Lewis. They are all people who own business, and you know, being around them, you know, they will have conversations. Listen, I know you're going through it, but what you had to do, shift your focus. And you know, even though they were saying this, I still, in my mind, I still was uncomfortable. I still wasn't too sure, because I was still fighting my demons, you know, fighting the demons of uncertainty, fighting the demons of procrastination. I was fighting these things, you know, because the space and what was happening with COVID put me in that position. But the persons around me constantly, you know, knowing who I am, constantly were like, listen, you have an opportunity, you have a business, you know, focus on the business. I said, I hear you, you know, but it's hard to focus when nothing happening. Okay, shift your focus. So I would tell anybody out there, any young man who is really looking to better himself, or to put himself in a space where he could succeed, look at the people around you. Look at the people around you. Who are you associating yourself with? If you want to become a chef, you have to be around the kitchen. You have to be around people who know how to deal with flour, rice. You know, you have to be around those persons. So, you know, for me, it's always about, as a man talking to other young men, it's like, listen, find yourself in spaces, constructive spaces, where you could be influenced. You know, I would always send that message as a man. You need to also watch who you're surrounding yourself with. You know, the communities, the different persons, because then have plenty of these grassroots communities. I'm from a grassroots community. I'm from Digomat and Rivers, but Digomat, Blue Basin to be exact. So I grew up around the marijuanas, I grew up around the drugs, the hustle and stuff like that. But there was always something in me where I wanted to become better. And that is where joining the YMCA and associating myself with other persons. And the will to want to live, and the will to want to be somebody different. That's where it has worked out for me. So it's all about knowing your circle, pushing yourself to be in different spaces, to have conversation with persons who are either leaders in their respective industry, leaders in what they do, and how best you can learn and absorb from them. You know?
Well said, Gleason. Well said. I mean, so many points you could take away from what you just said. Talking about aligning yourself with the right people, exposing yourself to opportunities, building that inner strength and moving forward. I think that is key as well, because a lot of people have doubts within themselves, especially through challenging times. It happens to everyone. So, especially as a man, where so much of responsibility is being placed on the individual, you know, to provide, to be tough, to not express how they truly feel. I think that those are some key points that really need to take home. We need to take home those information. We need to understand that as men, you have to align yourself with what you want to become. You know, it's not about just sitting there, because we see it a lot. We see a lot of young men speak about ambitious entities and ambitious goals, and yet they're not placing themselves in the environments to foster that sense of change now. So that's important. You know, you mentioned counseling, right? As you rightfully said, Trinidadians, females tend to reach out to counseling initiatives, because that's actually one of the things that I started throughout the whole COVID thing. Reaching out, using my expertise as a mental health professional to be there for others. I got a team on board, and we have been doing some counseling sessions with individuals throughout since 2020 to now. You know, it's really good, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to persons, how they view it, and the stigma attached to it, because it's real. And it really helps. It helps. And the thing about it is, it's like riding a bike. You would never know the outcome until you try it. You know, and I think persons need to become a bit more sensitized about that aspect, about their mental health and adhering to their mental health, as simple as it may seem. Because when you use the word mental, everybody think that you're loco. You know, but it's not that. It's just, you know, getting that sense of equilibrium, being able to balance yourself, make clearer decisions, have, you know, more sound judgment in the decision-making process, things like that. All right, so you covered a lot. Fatherhood, I know you are a dad. right, of a toddler. I believe he's a toddler right now. What has that been like? As it pertains now, I wanna focus on all the aspects. I want to focus on the aspect of you preventing him from getting sick, you protecting your family health wise, being able to provide for him. I know that you have assets and things like that, but what advice would you give to any other father? Because there are a lot of fathers out there that don't have the avenues that you do. You know, how should they engage, and what are some of the thoughts that they think as a man? What are some of the thoughts that men are manifesting right now or have been manifesting? I think it's something with your with your speaker, because I'm not hearing it either, and I haven't touched anything. So are you all hearing me? Let me know if you're hearing me, because I'm not hearing him either. I was of the opinion that you guys were hearing him. Okay. I'm not hearing him. So Gleason, probably this is something that is happening on your end, because I didn't touch anything on my end, but I stopped hearing you when you began to speak. So I'm not sure what is causing that. I think he got bumped off because I'm not seeing him here. Let me send back an invite for him. I think he got bumped off. It's his network, most likely. But so far, he has some really interesting points that was mentioned as it pertains to, you know, building that self-confidence, aligning yourself with the right persons. I haven't heard anything that he said as it pertains to the fatherhood aspect. So let me just see if I can get him back online here so that we could continue the conversation. Okay, so he's gonna come back on. Let's see if we hear him now. He's joining. Okay, Gleason, can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Oh, let me back on. We live.
No, the thing is, I was hearing you from before. So I don't know,
I didn't hear anything you said after I asked the question. I realized it was a bit delayed based on your gestures, and then I stopped hearing you. But I thought everyone else was hearing you, so I didn't just.
Okay. Yeah, no problem, no problem.
We need to rewind for that because people listening to you, boy, you have an audience. Okay,
some friends, I've seen some of my friends some of my friends, I've seen some of my friends in the comments to the network, the associate, the family, you know, Bailey, Sarah, and Josie, the whole team, Lennox, you know, Calvin. So good people, man.
I saw one or two parents online too from Children's in Action. So hi, Miss Sharon. Jeanette. Well, Lennox is our avid supporter.
Yeah, man. Alex is, man. Lennox, good people, man. Yeah. So I was saying in terms of you know, during the last 2 years, in terms of just dealing with my sons, for me being home really allowed me to bond more with them. You know, because I think if COVID didn't happen, I would have been traveling, I would have been focusing on work, and you know, it would have been, I would have definitely had a regular routine with them. You know, deal with them in the morning, deal with them in the evening, play with them on the weekends. You know, but because I was home for all this time. You know, the response was different. You know, emotionally, I think I built a stronger bond with them. How they react to me and how they respond to me, I think all of that is because of COVID. And I would admit that in the early part of COVID, I didn't see that. What I saw was frustration. What I saw was, listen, I can't deal with them right now. Because they're making noise, and I study my business. You know, so in the beginning, it was very, very frustrating. But then, as I said, sometimes you had to go through these situations to kind of come out a better person on the other side. You know, so what I would say now is, as a father, I think because of COVID, I've built a stronger bond with my kids, because it allowed me to spend more time with them. It allowed me to see their personality as well, because during that time, you know, you're seeing the personality, you're seeing the one who figure he's a little smart man, you know, he doing tricks and he hiding, and, you know, just seeing that, you know, because now I appreciate it more, because prior to that, as I said, you know, it was frustrating. Yeah, it was frustrating, you know, so I would say in terms of fatherhood and going through this period, it has definitely brought me a lot closer to my kids, you know, and just seeing them and being able to respond to them and stuff like that. And what it has for me, my patience level, because even though my last name is Job, I don't have no patience, but my friends know, and the thing is, my friends will say otherwise. They will say, "Nah, Job real patient," and you know, because I don't think I don't respond the way I used to respond before. I'm not, you know, normally I would kind of jump off the hinges and stuff like that. But I would say over the last 5 years or so, I've evolved into this person where I listen more. If you see me get to that point, it's because, listen, okay, well, yeah, you know, but now, you know, my temperament is different, especially having kids. It teaches you how to be more patient, because, you know, these children nowadays, you know, with these tablets and these devices, you know, they're more active, you know, and they learn quicker, you know, and they're influenced differently compared to when we were growing up, you know. So I've learned so much during the last 2 years. And as I said, it was a roller coaster, and it still is a roller coaster. But I think my support system, is very, very important, having good friends, as I said, and having regular conversations. And sometimes, at one point in time, I had removed myself from um, all these different WhatsApp groups that I was involved in. Even my own company WhatsApp group, I was like, I just left because I was going through it. And as I said, it was a very dark place, but I realized that it affected everything in terms of business, personal life, family life. It affected everything, and I had to find myself in a place where I couldn't allow it to affect how I was interacting with people, how I was interacting with my family, how I was interacting with my kids. So I really had to. It was a struggle to transition from that darkness into the space that I'm now, where I'm more controlled, I'm more patient. I respond differently to the boys. And all of that, as I said, it was a process to get here. But I do understand that men now, in particular, especially being in most households, the breadwinner, especially if the industry that you're involved in was affected, is a high level of frustration. And of course, now that trickles down to how you deal with your partner, how you deal with your significant other. It affects everything around you. If you're a laborer, if you're working in a casino, you're working as a driver, whatever high level job, low level work, once you are affected, especially financially, because especially for a lot of men, they are considered to be the backbone of the family. They are the breadwinners, they're the one making the money, putting the food on the table, doing all of that. And we don't take those things into consideration, that men psychologically during the last 2 years have been so, what's the word I'm looking for? We have been, and I don't want to say damaged, but we're so, let's just use it with frustration. There's such a high level of frustration, but yet we're expected to still be the breadwinner. We're still expected to manage the family, and we're expected to function at 100%. And nobody sees that, hey, this man needs a break. This man needs some space. This man just needs to reset. Nobody's seeing that. So then that's why you would have seen an increase in domestic violence, an increase in divorces. So much things have happened in the last 2 years because of the instrument of the man, and how he has been affected and not being able to be in space to allow him to address some of the challenges that he's facing, because society still has it that he is supposed to operate and function at 100%. Wipe your tears, pull up your big boy pants, and still function.
Yes, get that
madness.
bread.
Yeah, that is madness. That is monsters you're creating. That is madness. So you find for a lot of the men who would have been able to transition out of that darkness, but you still have a lot of men who still in that darkness, who still don't know, hey, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to function mentally? I'm frustrated, I'm coughing the wall. I don't even know, how to start processing what's happening. The frustration is there, and as I said, for me, one of the highlights was really being around good friends, and as I said, I know they all know, because we all have been through it and continue to go through it, but I think we would have seen where positive conversations, and the support was there. So even if it means, sometimes we'll have these calls, these these WhatsApp video calls, where 6 or 7 of us as men, and what we doing? We just checking in. I think on Father's Day we did it. Hey, on Father's Day, only men calling, and we had this video conference conversation. Hey, fellas, it's Father's Day. How everybody doing, boy? But yeah, well, I in the kitchen, but I just chilling, I just relaxing, and it was just an opportunity. That's a talk, and again, men don't get those opportunities. When men do get those opportunities, is alcohol involved, is a football game, it's one of those informal recreational settings. But to have a serious conversation about men and the frustration, that men are faced, we don't. There's no national dialogue, and it's seen as if, as men, yeah, a shopping man, or you're not supposed to feel frustrated. You're not supposed to feel any form of depression or anything like that. As a man, you're supposed to be able to function, and that's why we have such a dysfunctional society. When you look at men and you hear some of the things that men are involved in, the way how men treat women. Come on, look at where the genesis of it is, from the family setting. Men are faced and experience a lot, but we are still expected to function at 100%, and that cannot be realistic. We have to find ways and instruments to help men start having conversations. One of the things that we recently formed is what we call the network, and of course it includes women. It's a space for both men and women, but it's entrepreneurs or business owners really coming together to support each other's business and to support each other's, because as I said before, the last 2 years, most of the businesses in that network would have been affected, you know. And what it is now, we having conversation about how can we assist each other. So every month, the plan is to host a one-day workshop on different things to assist and to grow our business and to support each other. You know, for me, I try to support small business as best as possible. You know, instead of going to the big groceries, I try to support the small mini man, the small man who's selling stuff around the corner. You know, somebody who's selling stuff online. Because I understand the frustration that they're going through, both men and women. You know, but as a black man in particular, being black, being a man with dreads, right?
Yeah, that's how we usual
Yeah, no,
suspect.
the usual
Mhm.
suspects. So, you know, I had to face so much adversity, but you know, at the end of the day, I must say that where I'm at now, I'm not where I want to be, but the journey to where I want to be, and that's where I'm on. You know, and I feel a lot better emotionally, mentally. The men that are around me, the constructive conversations that we are having. How can we support each other? How can we lift each other up? And it's something that I would encourage, something that I encourage men to do. How can we support each other? How can we constantly grow? Because when you look around and you look at the challenges that men are faced with, it's so much, but we have to find constructive ways of dealing with it.
Mm. What advice would you give to like the younger generation of men, the secondary school students that seem to be so misguided at this point in time? I mean, when you look at them, some of them just lost. You know, they're just lost. You're going to the hood, you watch them, marijuana seems to be the way out. You know, make it worse, it was decriminalized. So, oof,
Mm.
is it like that the thing to do? You're looking at, I have seen youth that never used to indulge in it. They live black. You know, they sit up on the block, they brew with it. I mean, and that seems to be their only type of redress, the only type of solution, the only type of fun, recreation, name it, you know. How can these young men bounce back from this?
Now, you see that question is a very difficult question to answer because I can if we can sit here and we could say, well, you know, they could join White Up, they could sign up for OJT. We can say all these things because those things are the easiest thing to say. But when you are in the community and you see these young men and you see what they are faced with, it's not an easy fix. You're talking about a community culture. You're talking about a conditioning, a mental conditioning based on what they're exposed to. You know, that's what they're exposed to every single day. One of the things that worked for me as a young man growing up was being able to come out of my community. Because when I say come out, for me, we grew up, you know, football, basketball in the back of water wheel. That's all we was doing. Football, basketball, you know, then you had the weed smokers, the alcohol. But everything, all we knew was Probation Road, was Digger Martin. That's all, you know. And when we started to go into Port of Spain and Lime on the Promenade, that was like a whole new world for us. Like, you know, like what Port of Spain, like, you know, you could travel out to Digger Martin and go to Port of Spain. Like, yeah, no, it was a whole new world, and then we could buy pizza and sit on the promenade. And the more we got out of the community, is the more our minds started to grow. You know, it was an opportunity to meet new people. So one of the things that I would say is try to, and I don't know how much of those programs exist or spaces, but one of the spaces that really helped me was YMCA. So when we left, when I would leave Digger Martin, we would go to YMCA to play basketball. That's where we would meet other young persons, but those young persons were not doing what we were doing. As in, they were not lying and smoking weed on the block. They were actually constructive young persons. And we're like, well, you know, like, okay, how can we sign up to be part of this program? How can we get more information about how to become a volunteer and stuff like that? So those opportunities presented itself, and we took advantage of those opportunities. Nowadays, I think that young people have there is a mix here. So those traditional programs to me are less. You don't hear much about. I don't know what's happening with the YMCA. I can't speak on what's happening now, and how much other programs and institutions are doing activities for young men. But what I could say is that you have the traditional elements that young men could try to get involved in, and then you have modern day technology, which is the use of the that digital platform. So, like for example, one of the things that you're seeing is a lot of young men using smartphones. So when you look around, you look at the NCWs, You look at what's his name, What You Know, the guy who does What You Know, and all of these things are instruments that are used. Now, if you hear their back end story, they didn't start off using those things. They would have been persons who came from the community, but they just use those tools to their advantage. So the phone is a tool. You know, you could start one of the big things now is all these different filters, TikToks. You could make millions. You can make money from doing these things. YouTube, content creation. This is the new way of doing things. So if you want, you have a little, you want to be an actor, you're doing acting on the block, you're in your community, you have a little knack for wanting to be involved in theater. Use your phone. That's an instrument. You know, go online, Google how to edit. What are some of the free editing? And because the phone, as much as you can use it for bad, you can also use it for good. It's an instrument. The phone, you know, it brings, you could do everything from your phone. You can search to find out how to create things, how to do things. You can answer so many questions using the phone. So one of the ways is turning that phone into a positive in terms of how can we use this phone for business, you know, shooting or filming vehicles, getting involved in the automotive industry using the phone, creating a Facebook page, and then eventually sponsors start seeing, okay, this person have how many thousand followers, let's get him involved. And because I know successful stories like that, you know. So it's about young men finding and getting opportunities to be in spaces that really deconstruct the psychosocial way that they have been cultured. You know, you have to find out, but the thing is, you also have to want to leave the community, right? So it's two things. You have to also want to leave, as in see what the world has to offer, but you also have to be exposed. So there's some programs I think that should definitely go to the community that young men should be involved in, should be exposed to. So whether it be on every once a month, you do a fair where you invite these different businesses to come in. So if young men looking for jobs, let's say, for example, you bring in Amalgamated, you bring in KFC, and you do a day where people can come and sign up for employment. So if you're looking for employment, the community organizes like a Saturday where young men can come, they can sign up if you're looking for a job, you know, and you have a space or a day where it's like a drive basically. So you have a day set up where you have all these different services. So from healthcare services, job opportunities, just general information, because I did things like that in the past up in East Dry River. And again, the men or the young men in the community that you think that wouldn't come and participate, they came out and participated. You know, they will come out, they're chained, they're taking their pants down, wherever. But they themselves, as much as you see them, they want an opportunity, but sometimes the opportunity, they had something to bring it because plenty of them, they can't leave the community. You know, they can't, for whatever gang rifle thing, whatever case is, they don't have the money or the funds. They have to stay in the community. So sometimes you have to take the programs to them. Sometimes you have to take these opportunities to them, let them sign up for it. So it's a mixture of both traditional as well as modern instruments that have to come together now to address this new generation of young persons.
Wow. I just had to laugh because it's so factual, you know, you hit the nail on the head. You know, it's so many different factors that you could take into consideration as it pertains to reaching out to these youths. I mean, we have gone way over an hour, I believe.
Oh, serious?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because, well, how long have we been clocking? I really didn't take the time we actually got through because we at it since around 8. So we probably know reach an hour.
Yeah,
no,
maybe about. I wasn't checking. Because I mean, it's good conversation, you know.
It's good conversation. All right. So I think I asked as much questions as I can to any of the viewers right now. Do you have any questions to Mr. Job at the moment that you'd like to ask? Just feel free to jump.
Don't ask me if I'm rich, because no, I'm not rich. They like to call me rich. I'm not, but I'm rich with life.
Anybody have any questions to ask him before we go? They're shy.
No, it's not a problem, man. I mean, they could follow me.
Questions probably that come off already.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, good vibes. I mean, Anika, continue doing what you're doing. And you know, I know you, you know, so since the days at CSP, and I know before you even start Children's in Action, you know, I saw the drive in you, the will to, I want to do something different for Kukurit. I want to do something different for those youngsters. And the thing is, you're talking about what, I don't know, it's about 7 years now or more. I
Yeah.
think about 7 or more.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I would, you know, there are some people who do things for the, you know, for the fame of it or for the popularity of it. I think I could safely say that you are not one of those persons. You, from the time I met you to what you're doing now, the one thing is consistency. You have been very consistent, evolving, but you're very, very consistent in what you're doing. And I mean, that has to be commended, and it has to be highlighted, you know. Continue doing what you're doing. You know, again, any assistance you need from me, I would help as best as I can, you know, and I continue to support you in what you're doing. You know what I mean? Continue pushing forward, continue touching the lives of young people in Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension, the world.
Thank you so much for that blessing. You know, you'd say that and I just had to laugh because I think it was on lunch the first time I came to meet with you.
Yeah,
and
and that's
you know, anything like that. They tell me you're going for lunch, and I was like, I refuse to wait an hour to get this for this person to come back. So I asked them, I said, which part lunch is? You know, you know, just from the discussion with you, I found that you was a very open person, and you didn't have to help at the time. You know, that was like over 6 years ago. That was just for a pageant. You didn't have to see it as important, and you did reach out to us. You did make sure that it was successful, even when we didn't have to eat with the bike. You know, so it go way back, and I see you still doing your thing. I mean, yeah, you take a whole different path right now, you know, but you're still there reaching out, and you didn't have to be here tonight, but you are. So I thank you for making the time. Right, even with all the difficulties that we endured to the beginning of the program, you know, you still stick at it. You make sure you get to come on live, and that I have to thank you, you know, because
no problem.
Forget about that and next week or something, you know. So, Mr. Gleason Job, for who don't know, entrepreneur, criminologist, program coordinator, educator, facilitator, project manager.
The full 9 years.
Yeah, and you know the thing about it is he humble. So you know, I want to thank you for being on Adaptive Adjustments live sessions, live web discussions. You know, today's topic was men. How men can adapt to the changing scenes of life at the moment. You know, and what are some of the solutions to help them to get back on track. So just to recap, counseling, aligning yourself with persons that would be fitting to the goal that you want to accomplish, building that inner strength to make the decision to move forward from where you are at present, you know, and you also made a big contribution for different persons, different organizations to come to the communities, different franchise holders. You're recruiting, do a recruitment drive. People need the work, they need the jobs. So instead of waiting for them to come and apply, go to meet them. And that is something that a lot of franchise holders taken for granted right now. Yeah. You know, they need, even the ministries, they need to really step up a bit and reach out a bit further to the youths. So thank you so much for your contributions tonight. I want to wish you all the best with the 2 young men, you know, and continue doing what you're doing. So guys, this is it for today. Until next week, please God. All right, Gleason, once again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. All right?
Yeah. So everybody, be safe. Be safe.
Yeah, good night, guys.
So everybody, be safe.